Hello everyone, Specter here, and welcome to Star Citizen. Today I would like to talk about the Javelin Class Destroyer, a ship that many players know but not fully understand about. As usual, I will talk about the stats of the ship, then I will go through some features as well as some interesting things I found but I don't have the answer for it. And finally, I will talk about some roles that the Javelin Class Destroyer can do when it's flyable. Without further ado, let's get to it. Javelin Class Destroyer is manufactured by Aegis Dynamics. Currently, it is the largest ship that is purchasable for players. The Javelin is about 480 meters in length, 198 meters in width, and 72 meters in height. For the armament, Javelin Class Destroyer comes up with 2 size 8 quad-mounted remote turrets, 7 size 7 twin-mounted man turrets, and 6 size 7 twin-mounted man turrets with a pair of size 4 Gatling guns on top of them to deal with some incoming fighters, missiles, or torpedoes. Also, there are 2 size 12 torpedo launchers with 32 torpedoes in total. For the components, Javelin got a capital-size radar, 8 medium-sized computers, 4 capital-size power plants, 4 capital-size and 8 large-size coolers, as well as 4 capital-size and 8 large-size shield generators. For the facilities, Javelin has a med bay, a brig, 6 modular rooms, a hangar that can house a Redeemer-sized vessel, a possible smaller hangar for small vessels like the Argo Cargo, a briefing room, as well as a mess hall. There is a possibility that the Javelin also got an armory on board due to the capabilities to carry a group of Marine. The cargo bay of the Javelin can hold 5,400 SCU worth of cargo, which might be adjusted in the future. For the crew size, officially the minimal crew size would be 12, while the maximum crew size would be 80. However, I think that 20 to 40 personnel would be reasonable enough for players to operate the Javelin in the future. When Javelin is available on the website, the Warborn price would be $2,700 while the standalone price would be $3,000, which makes the Javelin become the most expensive ship currently on the table. Alright, let's talk about the designs of the ship. First, the turrets. Both size 8 quad-mounted turrets are being placed on a rail, which can provide slightly better flexibilities than the fixed turrets. Also, according to the Scene Threat Defense, the Javelin's main gun have a very good gun depression, so both turrets will have a better chance to aim at the targets even if the ship is not at the best attack position. However, I think that it is not a useful feature. Unlike the RSI Scorpius, those 2 size 8 turrets are not defensive turrets at all, and both can cover the upper part and lower part of the ship already, so you don't need to move the turrets to cover the so-called blind spot of the ship. Also, both turrets are not sharing the same rail. It means that they can't replace each other if one of the main turrets was being damaged or destroyed. I thought about the points that you can decrease a ship's profile by moving the turret to the stern, which may let the Javelin Class Destroyer have an easier time to pass through some narrow paths like the asteroid fields. But due to the position of the bridge and also the size of the turrets is relatively small compared to the ship, this point is not going to be convincing. Now let's talk about the other turrets. The size 7 turrets are being placed at both the upper part and lower part of the ship, which seems they can effectively cover the whole ship from all angles. However, all the turrets with size 4 Gatling guns are being placed at the upper part of the ship only, which means that the Javelin Class Destroyer will be a little bit vulnerable if the missiles or torpedoes are approaching from the ship from the bottom. About the engagement tactics, according to the placement of the turrets, it seems like it would be better if the Javelin Class Destroyer uses broadside to face the hostiles to do some sort of man of war tactics, as it allows more turrets to engage the hostiles at the same time. Yet, I think that the Javelin Class Destroyer would be the deadliest when it is using the front to face the hostile, which it can use not only its main gun, but also its size 12 torpedoes. Lastly, the briefing room and the captain's quarter. Although in Squadron 42, players might receive missions from the commander via the briefing room or the captain's quarter, it is hard to say how useful they can be in the PU, so I think that people should not expect too much from the usage of those areas in the future. There's a question I always wanted to ask but I couldn't find the answer at the end. Does Javelin Class Destroyer have landing gear? I heard a lot of people saying that the Javelin Class Destroyer does not have landing gear because we can't see it. Also, the wreckage on Daima is a good sign to show that the Javelin Class Destroyer can't even operate in the atmosphere. Yes indeed, we have never seen the Javelin Class Destroyer land on the ground so far, but we can't see it doesn't mean that it doesn't have it. Second, the Javelin wreckage on Daima was caused by gravity for sure, but it crashed after it suffered severe damage due to some sort of malfunctions on board that caused explosion. After losing all power, the Javelin Class Destroyer was being caught by the gravity of Daima and crashed on it. Lastly, at least during 2952 IAE, we saw that the Javelin Class Destroyer flew inside the atmosphere of Crusader when it was embarked at Orison, which means to some degree, it suggests that the Javelin Class Destroyer can handle the gravity. On the other hand, some people said that the Javelin Class Destroyer is being built in Jutta, an underground city on Sustulus, and also the headquarters of Aegis Dynamics, so it means that the Javelin Class Destroyer should have landing gear. I would like to say that it is not true. Jata indeed is an underground city and also the headquarters of Aegis Dynamics. However, the factories in that city only for building components, not pumping out ships. According to the lore, the Javelin Class Destroyer that is sleeping with the sandworm on Leia 3 was built in Vespin Dry Dock, which is near Sustulus, not on it. Due to lack of natural resources and hostile environments in Davian system, I think that the dry dock has a high possibility would be in space instead of on planets. First, it's easier for the materials to get to the shipyard from the other places, as there would be none or very few coming from the other nearby planets in the system. Second, it's related to Orison. By building ships inside of an atmosphere with breathable air, according to the lore, Orison shipyard can pump out ships 40% cheaper. It may suggest that there are many shipyards that build big ships probably are not inside of an atmosphere at all. Yet, no matter whether the ships are being built in space or in the atmosphere, it will not show whether the ships got landing gear or not. Why? Just look at the Crusader ships and you will understand. They all got landing gear while they were built without touching the ground. So what do you guys think? Feel free to leave a comment down below. Okay, let's talk about the roles that the Javelin Class Destroyer can perform, and to be honest, many of them are being covered by CIG already. First, the Javelin Class Destroyer is very effective when it comes to blockade and escort. In many cases, if you are flying a big military vessel like the Perseus or the small capital-sized combat vessel like the Polaris to defend a convoy or location, the attackers might still think that they can fight against you. However, if you are using a Javelin Class Destroyer to defend this kind of location or convoy, many attackers might just simply give up, as Javelin Class Destroyer is too strong for the attackers to attack it, which they may need to sacrifice a lot during the fight. Long story short, Javelin Class Destroyer defending locations or convoy not via combat but show fear to the intruders. Second, the Javelin Class Destroyer is a perfect ship for raiding. With all the armaments on board, Javelin Class Destroyer can cut down everything from hostile fighters to capital ships on its path in a short period of time. Acting as a flagship of the fleet is also a good option for the Javelin. With the Javelin's strong defense and massive crew size, the commander of the fleet can focus on organizing the combat without worrying about flying the ship or targeting hostiles. One of the roles that people suggested for the Javelin Class Destroyer may not be a good idea at all, which is orbital bombardment. But this is not about the weapon's range. Actually, the weapons on board of the Javelin should have enough range to reach to the surface from the orbit, as someone used an Aegis size 10 gun to hit something as far as 40 kilometers away from the surface target outside of the atmosphere already. Although size 8 guns should have a shorter firing range than the size 10 guns, it should be fine for the Javelin to target anything on the surface without entering the atmosphere. The true reason is about how the game mechanic works. If there are no human players getting close to the location, things like facilities or targets will not spawn. So you need to have a human player to get close to the target before you perform the bombardment. Yet, the distance between the human player and the target will be very close if you observe it from the orbit at that time, which you may cause casualties when you fire the weapon. So, unless you really want to make it like a ritual, making sacrifices every time you bombard an area, planetary bombardment is not possible to perform. Also, recon force is being mentioned as a role for the Javelin. Personally, I think that the Javelin can do the job, but it may not be the most ideal ship for the task. As a powerful opponent, Javelin will attract too much attention from the enemy, and the hostiles probably will have an easier time locating the Javelin as well. During the time of conflicts, both sides will try to spy on each other. The bigger threat you can be, the opponent will pay more attention to you. So your enemy probably knows your whereabouts before you start your recon mission. Of course, your opponents may not be able to fight against Javelin, but they can run away before your arrival, and you may not be able to gain useful intelligence from your recon missions. To summarize, the Javelin Class Destroyer is a powerful and capable ship for many tasks, at least on paper right now. But bear in mind, the Javelin is a huge capital ship after all, which requires a lot of resources to keep it running in the future. Also, unlike in Squadron 42, you cannot operate the Javelin by yourself. You really need a sizable crew to make the ship operational. If you are flying the Javelin with your friends or clan members, you need to make sure that they can frequently get online during the week, as you should expect them to spend a lot of time to understand the interior of the ship before they even be able to make the Javelin combat effective. Running a ship without a well-trained crew just makes your ship look like a Japanese Shinano carrier in World War II, being sunk easily without achieving anything. I suggest that people who own the Javelin better to save up tons of credits first before you start getting your Javelin out of the hangar. As the time before your crew got trained up, you will keep on losing credits for sure. Anyway, the Javelin Class Destroyer right now is not flyable yet, many things are subject to change. So getting a ship that will cost you probably a month worth of salary is not an ideal thing to do. So I strongly suggest people who try to get your hands on the Javelin, please wait until it's flyable first when you try it first, and yeah, you can buy wherever you want it if you really like it. Alright, so that is it for today's video, and if I say something wrong or if you have any idea about the Javelin Class Destroyer, feel free to leave a comment down below, and especially if anyone knows about whether the Javelin got a landing gear or not, feel free to leave a comment down below to answer the question as well, okay? So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoy, and I shall see you guys next time then. Bye bye.